Today, the news broke that ASAP Rocky is going to be charged with assault in Sweden. And if you've been following this story, you know that a few weeks ago, ASAP Rocky was in Sweden for tour, and he was being followed by two Swedish men, young men, and they were harassing him and his friends and his bodyguard, and the situation escalated, and altercation took place where, according to Swedish authorities, bottles were being used, and these two men were hurt, not really badly, but hurt enough to require hospitalization. Thereafter, ASAP Rocky was arrested and put into a Swedish jail where he was held for about 2 weeks before he was allowed to sit with someone from the United States, a representative of the United States. And since then, he has spoke with his mother at least once, and with other friends, and his lawyer. And today, as I mentioned, they decided to try him for assault and charge him with assault. And in the meantime, while all of these things were taking place, he has been questioned by a lot of African Americans and other black people who remember comments that he made about 3 years ago, after Ferguson. He said some things that were very insensitive. He basically, in a nutshell, said that he didn't care about what was going on there, that he's not Al Sharpton, he didn't sign up to be an activist. He's more interested in sex, drugs, music, rock and roll, all that comes with being a rock star or a rap star. And um, I have to admit, when I found out that he was arrested and I found out about some of the details of his story, that was the absolute first thing that I thought about. And I was very angry. And a part of me honestly had the initial reaction that he's kind of getting what the universe provides, which is wisdom through experience, because now he'll understand viscerally how racism really does impact the lives of all black people, and that he's not above it, that there's no amount of money, fame, success, or illusion of power that's going to completely eliminate the possibility that you can be affected by racism. And I go back to the moment where he made that comment and make other comments about dark-skinned women, and it made it a challenge for me to feel any level of empathy for him initially. As time has passed over the last few weeks, I have been following this story. I've seen images of his mother and his family, who want to see him free, which makes perfect sense. And his mother is a beautiful, dark skinned black woman. And I just sit back and I'm like, how could a man who has the skin that he's living in, who has a mother who has the skin that she's living in, say the things that came out of his mouth? Because the thing about a lot of people who are black, who kind of distance themselves from anything that is associated with blackness, whether it be black skin, black culture, black history, whatever it might be, oftentimes they are people whose very presence alludes to those things. And his mother is a great example of this. This is a black woman from New York. Everything about her is black, and on the surface of it, whatever that means. And I'm not hinting at there being some monolithic black identity, because I do understand that there are levels to this. But she's a black woman, and so are his siblings. And I'm sure he has other family members as well. So that was extremely disrespectful. And what he said regarding Ferguson was not only dismissive and disrespectful, but it was just a complete idiotic thing to say, and it just made him look like a coon. And every time I saw him, even though I do like a lot of his music, I think he's a very talented artist. I always remembered in the back of my mind that this is a brother that has issues. He has some type of identity issue, because 9 times out of 10, the very same people that have all this to say about um, black people or dark-skinned black women, they are dark-skinned black people themselves. So clearly you have a level of self-hatred. I think that makes me think about Gilbert Arenas and all the really horrible things that he had to say about Lupita Nyong'o. And this is a dark-skinned black man who has children who are brown to dark skin, who is out here saying these things. I'm sure his mother, his grandmother probably have dark skin as well. And it's just extremely problematic, but it does hint at their own issues that they face. So now we're here 3 weeks later, and apparently Donald Trump had got involved to try to convince the Swedish government to give him bail, but that's not how they roll, and they did respond in kind that no, we do not interfere in judicial matters in this country, which is a little bit of a shade to him, because obviously with everything that's been going on over the last 3 years of his presidency, and just in this country in general, the justice system, it's kind of a pay-to-play system where the more money you have, the more likely you are to walk free. And Rocky's money over in Sweden is not making a difference in his situation. Kanye West and Kim Kardashian have got involved. There's some type of petition out there that they want people to sign. And other celebrities are saying that they're not going to perform in Sweden any longer. And I respect anyone that advocates for another human being to not be affected so negatively by systems or so-called justice systems that are really unfair. And I do have an evolving opinion about this. Initially, like I said, I was very angry, and I did not have a lot of sympathy or empathy for him. But the more I think about him, the more I realize that he is just this very visible example of a lot of black men and black people in the United States of America who have been poisoned by like these seeds of self-hatred that come along with racism. And hopefully this experience that he has will remind him as well of the words that came out of his mouth, and will give him a first-hand understanding of why it's important to honor other black people and to honor the experience and the pain that we go through when we see situations unfold like they did in Ferguson or in Charleston, South Carolina, or when we turn on the news and we see our brothers and our sisters laying out in the street dead when they were unarmed, or knowing that we have millions of black people and brown people going through the criminal justice system and unfairly being charged with these lengthy sentences for nonviolent drug offenses or nonviolent crimes. We need reform, not just in the United States, but outside of the United States. And it is so easy when you have made certain choices, or you have a talent like he does, or like a basketball player might, where you can somewhat transcend the poverty that comes with these unjust economic systems. And you're wealthy now, you're living in the neighborhoods that everybody wants to live in, you get to drive the cars that everybody wants to drive, live in the homes that everybody wants to live in, go anywhere you want to go, eat anything you want to eat, do anything you want to do. And that freedom that you have creates this illusion that you as a black person are no longer subject to the violence and the inequality that comes with racism. And that is a lie. That is the lie. It's the ultimate lie. Because if you look, there are many examples of black men especially who achieve a certain level of wealth power, success, fame, and in one instance, all of that can be taken from them. And some might even argue that there are entities out there that are literally preying upon these men to find an angle to come in and destroy everything that they've built. So, my hope, my sincere hope, is that ASAP Rocky, has rethought the words that came out of his mouth a few years ago, that he now has a firsthand understanding of why it's important to not only leverage your platform to sell products, but also to spread good ideas that lift people up, to advocate for people that may not have a voice. But I also think that this is yet another opportunity for the black community to embrace one of our own who has lost their way. And I can get into intense debates with many of my friends who don't necessarily have that level of compassion any longer. We as a black community are often asked to forgive people for the unforgivable. And people have often called our community the conscience of this country. And that might be true, but it does go or speak directly to the tremendous humanity that exists in our community. We're often depicted in ways that are extremely negative. But the fact of the matter is that we do forgive as a community. We do live by a certain set of values where we attempt to embrace one another and lift each other up. And we create this fictional or figurative home for our own people where we can come back to and know that there is a place that we belong. And I hope that moving forward, this is a lesson not only to him, but to anybody else who is ascending, that no matter how high you ascend, you can always be brought down. And when you make decisions along the way where you remember who and what birthed you, then that does provide a foundation for you always. And I hope that he doesn't end up spending 2 years in jail in Sweden. And I wish all the best to him and his mother and the rest of his family.